Hey, Steven.
Hey, the beat is so catchy.
The beat is okay.
Every time a bit more. I love it.
Good to see you again, my friends. And hello, everybody. Welcome to yet another bUnit dev session. I think it's number 23. Yep.
Yes.
That's what you at least tagged our show as. You know what just happened?
No one complained until now.
Yeah. You know what just happened while the intro music was playing? Windows just popped up and said updates available. So
nice.
Yeah, I'm gonna pause that. It's not just the antivirus update.
Oh, I thought they did. Yeah. Isn't there this? How is it called? These like anti-annoyance feature of Windows where it tries to predict whether or not it's a good time. So maybe seeing you dancing was like, hey, do you want an update?
Yeah, he's not doing anything. That might be. Oh. Okay, so yeah, and Scott will be joining us in half an hour or so. But I guess, do we want to just jump straight into looking at the? I can't even remember what we were doing last time. We were doing a
multitude of things.
Yes. So we were talking about. Oh yeah. So .NET 9 was just released, and what we were working on render modes and having support added for them so that you can control and toggle that when you are trying to test your components.
Yes.
Yeah. Yes. And I think we hacked together something that might turn into a solution for that particular thing. And I believe you pushed something to the
sometimes
to the GitHub. Yes.
Yes. As you pushed a multitude of releases. So
yes, yeah.
Just for folks to keep up, you have to upgrade a lot.
Well, yeah. You can skip the one that came half an hour before the other one. So yeah, that's a good point. Let's just give that a shout out. We released a version of bUnit that has been compiled against the stable SDK of .NET 9 and have references to the stable packages of .NET 9. So we have a few dependencies on Blazor specific packages and a few others. So yeah, if you download that and you're targeting .NET 9, you should get bits that are compiled towards .NET 9 and get all the benefits that comes with that. And bUnit is more or less ready to go. The only thing that you can't really do by now, which is what we work on here, is you can't control the assigned render mode during testing if you have some logic in your components that looks at that and does something different. So that is, I think, what we are looking towards adding. Mm-hmm. Now, let me get my screen share going here. Share screen, window, and I'm using a tool called Region to Share, which is actually a small Windows Store app that you can install. And then I use...
hey, me.
Oh, it froze. There we go. It's going to move us over to the side here. And then I use PowerToys to create a region on screen that I will snap the Region to Share app to, and basically gives me a sort of a transparent window that just takes whatever is below, in this case Visual Studio, and makes it shareable. So then I can go into apps like StreamYard and say, share this particular app, and then anything underneath that app will be visible, so I don't have to toggle every time I want to flip to something else, like going to Visual Studio or going to my my editor here. So we have render mode cascading on component. I think what I'm going to do is, this is something I sometimes do when I want to review code or I just want to keep working from a place. I just reset back to here. So instead of having it as a commit, then we have on-stage changes now. And then I like to go in here to Visual Studio and just close all the things open here, and we can, well, where's my expand all the things?
Oh.
Yeah. So here, now it just shows me the changed files. So that gives me an idea of where to pick up from where we left. Yeah. Oh, probably what we want to do is we probably want to rebase on stable on main, so we get the latest .NET 9 bits in. So
that is do that. Wait before you do that, because you are in a reset mode. That might be.
That's fine. That's fine. It'll. So I clicked a bit fast, but what fork allows me to do is say rebase, but then stash and reapply my changes. So it'll stash all my unstaged or uncommitted changes, and then it'll do the rebase, and then it'll, once it's done with that, then it'll apply the things we have here. Now, I guess what we want this bit here, and then we want, well, no, I don't want it there.
What?
Wait. It's under unreleased, so up here.
Looking good.
Then we are done. We can see continue rebase. Oh, yeah.
Oh, that's what? Oh, that's, by the way, an interesting bit. I am absolutely not sure if this is an issue with Blazor and how it's compiled down, but unfortunately, the diff you had before was I needed that as a exactly as my foundation for argumentation. Yeah, the first one. So
this guy.
No, the section outlet component Razor. The basically the bottom one, but it's the first one you showed. I see that my argumentation was flawed. Anyhow, so you can see on line 2 the if .NET 9 or greater. Yeah. And still you can see on line 5 I used the whole namespace. And that is because if you try to use something on line 4 as using Microsoft ASP.NET Core Components sections, which doesn't exist in .NET Standard, for example, the compiler is still complaining. I have no idea why that is. It feels like a bug.
Yeah, might be. Well, let's see. So this was the thing. So what you're saying is if you want to do using, and then we can...
Until the sections, exactly.
That bit in there. And now I should...
You don't even have to remove this because that namespace doesn't exist in very early versions of .NET and Blazor. But, so. And now if you compile that, at least on my local machine...
Yeah. So well, let's see if everything builds after the rebase and all of that.
Yeah, exactly. So, and I feel this is a bug.
And I don't know if this is... Yeah. So honestly, I'm not sure how many of our, this whole, doing this in a Razor component, that's probably not supported, I guess, from Microsoft's point of view. But let's see the output here. That would be...
Your poor CPU is struggling right now.
So if we do here, yeah, so here we see that it's complaining that section doesn't exist.
Exactly, but for me that was very, very surprising.
Well, I agree. Let's see if we go and do this and go here and just put it here, and maybe we can... I guess that came into .NET 8, right?
6, even the section... 7, 6? I do not know. I mean, the only thing where we need this right now would be .NET 9, so it doesn't hurt to say .NET. Now, coded cannot... Does that work that way?
I'm not sure.
You're doing fancy stuff. I like that.
Hang on 1 second. I got a call, family call I had to take. Hang on, juggle or something while I take this. 1 second.
Oh God, the pressure is high. So, dear viewer, unfortunately I have... Oh wait, I don't want to make advertisement for certain companies, but I have here two things. You can see it here. I can try to juggle. That's like... Well, and there the magic is gone. Okay, but maybe I can just take over the screen. We have a community contribution, do we? Yes, we have one. But I'm not sure if it's really worth showing because it's about the internal. I tried to juggle.
It's a good
it didn't work.
Yeah,
it didn't work. Okay. I had 2 items.
Yeah.
And even one I catched and the other one I didn't. But I hope people that are watching or in the future are watching, you are very entertained by my actions.
Yeah. That's great. Yeah. It's
I hear it.
so you know, our friend Scott Saber has family duties at home, and this is about the time where my kids get off school, so they start calling me about all sorts of things. So yeah, it's this is interrupted stream at times. Now, well, let's see. Well, let's just run all the tests, right? That's a good starting point, I guess. Oh, and I will. Yeah, I will leave it to you to. Actually, let me just move us over here, such that I can have you in a fuller screen. I guess is the word I want to use here, and because I want to look at what is being shared. Here we go. Okay, and let's go back to Visual Studio. Okay, I think I heard a ding from.
What is a ding?
Oh, okay. Huh? Yeah, that came a ding from here.
I guess it saw your old version. I know you didn't save him.
I accidentally added a change that I didn't want to add. So let's see. There's a bunch of markup warnings. Okay. Render mode test.
What is interesting? What happened?
Yeah, exactly what happened.
Given that the current branch is green on GitHub.
Yeah. So.
Is it though, or am I lying? Wait. Pooh, I didn't lie. I was just leaning out of the window a lot here.
I think we have an unnecessary amount here of.
No. Try it. I tried it once. I guess it didn't work. If you compile this against .NET something earlier, it doesn't work.
All right. Well, I think for this particular test, we might as well not have it in a eraser file.
It wasn't. It was a C# file before, and I wanted to use certain things, especially the letter test. The letter test.
Yeah, no. So what's going on here is that the merge probably messed it up, and that's why it's complaining. So it kept both files, and now if I delete the C# file, we are just back, and now it's happy. Now there's no conflicts.
Exactly. Yeah. So after we closed the stream, some of the components were still called some child, some parent, something in the month of May. And I decided off stream A to add more tests, B to refactor them, and C to check how the parent component and logical parent component behaves with the section outlet thingy, where I was more than amused that our stuff is just working for all the cases, not all the cases, but the ones I added at least, where I thought it will break.
All right. So actually what I'm going to do is I'm going to delete all my local changes. I'm going to pull and rebase the changes you have. So I'm sure that I haven't thrown out any of the good stuff you might have concocted while we were busy. So at so
that's not true. That is you're rebasing right now?
Yeah, I just rebased back. So the whole, this part here is down here. Yeah, that's fine. Oh, yeah, and I'm sharing the wrong part of the screen. Hang on, yeah, and there's one more. Okay, and merge that. I'm gonna put this into the window. So I guess, yeah, we want...
Yeah, we want to have the right side. 136 preview. Yeah, that's also not true. No, for now it is true because this is the first release commit. There should be a version 137 preview later on, but that's the first commit.
Yeah, exactly. So solve that, keep going. And the next one, merge. Oh, okay.
That was a nice effect. I like that.
Yeah. That's tricks going on. Add packages here. I guess again keep that one. And
I mean, in theory, you could also remove all the changelog MD and just say always take hours, and at the end we just edit again. If this makes it easier.
Really isn't happy with.
But there is at least. Oh.
Here we go.
Oh, the repaint trick.
Yeah. Okay. And I guess set version. We probably want to keep that one. So only a few more qubits left until we've hit the place we need to hit. And here we can see.
Why did he complain in the first place? Okay. Where's the...
Yeah, no, this is the one we want.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. Yeah, because we are changing stuff now. Oh, well.
Yeah.
I think we want...
We want to have the right one. The from theirs, from your perspective, it's theirs.
Yeah, this is the origin, and we don't want to keep. Well, I think this might be coming back. Oh, this is no, this is the new.
Exactly, that is what we want.
This one, yeah.
Yeah.
This part here, right? Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Resolve. Okay, continue rebase. Oh, and now I have. No.
Yeah, no, that's...
Oh, this is all the way down here. Okay, yeah, what I will do is I'm going to do it in the opposite order. I'm going to say reset. I'm going to say hard. We're just going to move back here. This is what we have. Now I'm one-to-one with on GitHub. Then I'm going to now apply my rebase. So I'm going to do it the other way around. So we are rebasing on main. And there should be very little things. Only basically we only expect this to be a thing, and we basically want both. We want first that, and then we want this, and we want this here to be added up under the unreleased section. Okay, that was much easier. And now we are good. So now we have that, and I can reset. Now I can reset locally, just back to here, keep the changes. So now we have, again, oh, so you moved, okay, you actually deleted the CS file, but then you moved to the Razor file. I see.
Yeah, I guess because of the amount of white space changes, so normally it should see that it's just moving the file and not a new file.
No, but it's a different file. It's a different file.
That doesn't matter if you use git move, but if the diff is too big.
Okay. No, yeah, you're right. You're right. Yeah. But yeah, it does. If we move it down here in my stage, it will see that it's the moved file. So is there a reason why you decided to go to what's the word I'm looking for here? A Razor file versus
so I wanted some of the things, if you can go into the test, especially the at the bottom one, the later ones. If you go down,
this seems redundant.
Okay, try it. I feel like there was a reason why I added this, but maybe I'm wrong.
What happens.
So if you go to the bottom of that, that doesn't sound good.
Yeah.
And that's was the reason.
So I guess it's my.
By the way, when you compile, just that you know, because your CPU is just at its maximum capacity, you are. Oh, I will wait until you're back.
Oh, that's a bunch of one. I think it's a new .NET thing, .NET 9 thing, that it just eats up all the CPU you can get, and that prevents me from actually streaming to. Let me try something though. I'm gonna go to here. I'm gonna just say let's do 30 FPS instead here for my screen share. Now.
Interesting. So exactly. So these are the tests, and that was the reason I added this specific if defined .NET 9. Yeah, I really feel probably even the top one you can remove, and the inner one. So the outer one you can probably remove, and the inner one you need.
Yeah, okay, but you wanted.
Yeah, exactly, stuff like that. You have a component with child content, and I wanted to add twice basically a child. That's just way, way, way easier. That
Yeah.
Arguably, we can also remove this. I don't mind.
Let's just.
Yeah, I'm pretty certain you can. You have to. Can you try removing the top part, the online too?
This
I feel
one?
like maybe. Yeah, I mean, what if we have it down there? For the using.
Well, we can just move the using inside, right? It doesn't have to
No,
be
you
outside.
cannot. Try it. I tried it. It doesn't work.
Yeah, we built this. I think we can try just to clean up a bit. And Shift F6 again. Let's see if it's happy with us. Yeah, still happy. So at least we have one less. Okay.
Amazing.
Let's get rid of some white space. So here I guess we just want to do this instead.
No. You don't. Not in V1.
Oh, but you down here, for example, we would be able to, instead of having this.
Yeah,
tag,
that was super stupid. You can just put it in there. Yeah, you see.
Yeah, well.
That's good that that we do this again.
Yeah.
I guess it was, by the way, my original idea, and then I was a bit how is it called?
Yeah, you get
Yeah, exactly. By all the compiler warnings.
I think the word is a brain fart.
If you want. But what I meant was more like yak shaving, because you go from one era to another. But that, I mean, this brain fart thing is more constant with me, so that cannot be the reason.
Oh no, okay, yeah. So it's just a.
If you have it always, would you call it still like that?
It's just your mode of working mode, right?
Exactly.
Yeah. Well, I know exactly what you are saying. Oh, I feel like this version of Visual Studio is working better with the inline render fragments. It's not completely messing up the formatting as it used to. So now you triggered my OCD, and now I just have to fix all of them, right? So
that was my main intention, of course, when I did this last Sunday or so.
Yeah, exactly.
It's like, how can I annoy you, but only very, very slightly?
Yeah. So, and here we have the same. What are you complaining about, though? Oh.
Where are you? Where was the complaining part? I am not sure if you can go.
It's because I wasn't closing this in element. Yeah. So here we want to do, the same. We want to say, and then we want to put our friend inside and do it like this. Almost.
And I feel at least that's I like it way more because that's how you would write the code in production.
Yeah, actually, and it seems like. So there was definitely some issues with the formatting, and it would be very unstable, and it would just bounce things around as soon as you hit try to format the document. It seems to have been solved. Now, let me just copy this up here. Save it by
this is literally the same component.
No. Yeah. We had a different. Insight, whatever. Insights were different. Okay, so let's see if we build again.
And if all the tests agree,
okay,
I would.
Yes, among other things. All right, let me see how things go if I hit the run all the tests.
Oh, .NET 9.
Let's just filter down to that.
Guess what? Yes.
Go to the assigned
there's a white space in the expected HTML.
Let's see.
Oh no, it's also missing.
So yeah, we expected nothing, but we got something. So let's see.
No, we expected something, but we.
Yeah.
Can you check on line 36 to 39? What was there before? I guess the outer component was not component with a WebAssembly thingy. You see, that's component without render mode. The outer one, the parent one.
Oh, you're right.
Which
copy paste mistakes.
You praised Visual Studio so good.
Oh no, Visual Studio.
And now
God damn it.
The fall.
Stop being confused. You were doing so good. You can sort of see almost like here. If I zoom in, you can see it's yeah. But I guess maybe it's if I do this. No.
It gets even worse.
Oh god. Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah.
It really doesn't like it.
Save. Okay, now it stopped messing up. I just have to put it correctly myself, and then it'll stop when I hit Control Save. Otherwise, it'll try to help.
Interesting.
Yeah.
You are running the latest stable version, or you're running the preview version of Visual Studio?
This is the stable one.
Latest stable. Okay.
Latest one. Yeah. For work, it seems to work better that way. But so actually, now that we can also do this. You can wrap. So text is like a virtual element that doesn't exist. It's just a way, because when you want to create inline render fragments like this, right, you have to have one single outer element, otherwise it doesn't work. And the text element, you can see it also has the pink thing. That's just, you can put whatever you want in here.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, it's
it's like React's empty thingy.
Yeah, it's just a wrapper that doesn't do anything. I don't know. I don't know about React, so I couldn't tell.
They have almost the same. So just you wouldn't write anything. You just open the bracket and close it.
Yeah. Here we can just
at least 4 years ago, last time I did React.
Yeah. Well, here we can just do, because we only have one element, so we don't have to use it. But for these, we would want to do the special text element.
Ooh.
And here as well. Well, here, I guess. Okay. I'm done OCDing very soon. So, he says. Okay. And let's get it aligned up. Okay. Now. And you managed to... Okay, so you want to catch me up on what we did last time, or rather what you did in the meantime between us being online?
So the only real thing, except making your life harder because of my weird way of rewriting that text, test, stable means near stable. Yeah,
so Visual Studio is never really stable. But I switch between using a preview version and non-preview versions. So sometimes, especially if you want to, for example, when they just start releasing .NET 10 previews, there's going to be stuff, maybe new C# stuff that you want the preview version of Visual Studio for. So I try to stay on stable because there's less yellow bars up here at the top of the screen indicating things have crashed.
Reference exceptions.
Yeah. Okay, so you want to talk me through...
Yeah, so
go ahead.
Basically there are two things I changed. The first thing is I did an eraser file. I did, and basically on top I just added tests. So if you check down, I guess from 006 or so, I created some parent and some child we had. I obviously renamed them. Yeah. I had deeper nesting, where you have a parent, a child, and a grandchild. Stuff like that. And I checked if the section outlet is also working. So you have two components, and the section outlet basically inherits the render mode to the section content, even though the section content is not part, at least at the beginning of the section outlet. And interestingly enough, because I thought our code doesn't cover that case, but it did. I was very, very surprised, to say the least, like positively. But then again, I am not sure for when would you use the logical parent component state. I have no clue.
Well, I think it has something to do with sections. That's at least my understanding. But let's scroll down here to the changes we actually have in here and flip it over to net9. So here, get component render mode, which is basically where we're doing the work. And yes, I believe all the tests that have something with render mode in them passed. So yeah.
Exactly.
So
and if you check the latest, the last test, not the latest, the last test in that file, if you go really to the bottom of the current file you are in, so there you have a section outlet component, and if you check that, then you can see how I did this. So there's basically the section outlet and the section content, and they are not part of the same. I mean, they are siblings, but the parent component doesn't dictate what rendering mode you are in. And component that prints assigned render mode works flawlessly if you put this in. And to be honest,
the section outlets decides WebAssembly mode.
Yes.
And then this component just prints the assigned render mode. If we go in here and have a look at assigned render mode, and for folks watching, this here is the new property in .NET 9 that is available by default on the what's the word I'm looking for here?
Component base.
Component base. Thank you. Yes, along with
rendered info, something like that. I just totally forgot.
Renderer info, I believe. Right. Yeah.
Is that the case? That's with, is interactive and stuff? I cannot.
Well,
render mode. I do not. Crazy. It's 1 week ago, and I just totally.
Yeah, it's like. Let's go in here and have a look. We have render mode, interactive server.
Assigned render mode.
Yeah, assignment. That's the one we were talking about just before, but that's another one. Renderer info, and it has renderer info. Yeah.
Why couldn't you access? You were not in .NET 9 in the component, I guess.
That's why. Well.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Yes.
That's why. So that's why if we go in here to,
I was just
go back
so
to
puzzled.
Just filter by. Yeah. So here I need to set it over to 9, and then I can do renderer. Well, renderer info.
No, it's like no.
Yeah. Yeah. And here we can see we have interactive and we have name available to us, right? So, so those are another way to get something about the assigned. So I guess I'm wondering if I just go here, source, renderer info. Again, I just want to remind myself because I already forgot. We talked about this last week. So this is the type, provides information about the platform that the component is running on. So this property comes from the actual renderer that is currently rendering.
Yes.
And I'm wondering why assigned render mode.
It feels like it's almost the same.
Yeah. Assigned render mode,
but I guess
that property.
The difference is if you go back, so if you put them side by side, basically the renderer info is just static information, which is decided at the beginning. Either you can be a static server side rendered, which is not interactive, and that thing is static. You can also be server, which is interactive, but your component could be still non-interactive. So the assigned render mode is the dynamic part, depending, if the render mode attribute is there or not. I guess that's the only difference.
So I think, I guess, so the renderer handler is not specific to a specific, static server-side rendering or interactive server-side rendering or interactive web client. And that contains a render mode. But I guess you could have a component that starts out being rendered statically, then it switches to Blazor server, like pre-rendering, then it's Blazor server, then the WebAssembly DLLs are downloading in the background, and then it switches to WebAssembly mode. But from a component developer's point of view, why would I use assigned render mode, inspect that versus inspecting the renderer info, right? You can see here, this is this class we are in. It's the component base, and right next to each other we have assigned render mode, and we have render info. I guess. Well, one difference is that this is nullable, whereas this is always provided.
Which is interesting that the thing could be nullable. But
yeah, well, I guess it's because this one is nullable. So
yeah.
And I guess it retrieves the okay. So I think the key here might be this word, right?
Yeah, because if you don't explicitly set the add render mode. But we saw that's also not true.
Because so I'm wondering if that, if they can be different though. So one thing is that a component can have an assigned render mode, but that may not be the render mode that's actually being used, right? Well, I guess
when would this be the case?
I'm trying to figure out why we would have both.
Because the interesting bit is even if you use static server-side rendering, well, then it's not set.
Yeah.
But it could be, and then it doesn't have to be nullable, and then it's the only.
Well, let's see.
I don't understand
Let's see. Renderer. So here we have the renderer get render mode for the component ID, and by default it will. So now we are in the base renderer. If we can go. Hang on 1 second.
Bye. I'm just wondering, does he still hear me? And now he has he's talking on the telephone, and then there's a dipshit like me who is just annoying him on the other ear. I hope that's true. I really, really hope that's true. So I tried juggling earlier. I will not do this again. You know what? I have no idea how long his will be gone. So let me also go to source.net. Let me check. He's
sorry. It was just somebody at the door. Let's see. So
I didn't even try juggling again.
That's fine. I didn't give you a chance to do so. So we're going to get render mode. You can see by default the default implementation under the renderer base render type. It just sets it to 0. Oh, sorry, to 0, not to 0, to null. And if we could then go and look at the remote renderer, it will return interactive server. Then you have interactive WebAssembly, and for pre-rendering,
nothing. I would assume.
Let's see.
Oh no.
Yeah. So here it tries to go and get the component state again. Then it gets the closest render mode boundary, and then it returns that. But I guess that is. So where is this set?
Render mode boundary. Amazing. What's that marker?
So here it can either be. Where are we in? We are in SSR render mode boundary.
You're still in the same type, huh?
Yeah, and I think this is that sequence, that's component ID. Who calls this method? It's called from here.
The renderer.
HTML renderer, yeah, and it's always if it's streaming, then you have Well, I'm not really getting any wiser here, but I think well, okay. So maybe what's happening here is that if you have the... I remember looking at this a while back. Yeah. I guess if you are if you're using the static pre-rendering, which basically if you have a Blazor application and you have static rendering turned on, so rather you have pre-rendering turned on, it will go to the server, it will get the static HTML, just download it, and then it will have different portions of the markup that can then turn into being interactive, if need be, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
And then that will be the, you can see we have the Blazor serialized start record stuff. So I'm guessing that will be the JavaScript portion of Blazor will pick up and say, hey, here's something of some part of the component that we need to turn interactive somehow.
My question then, I can follow your argumentation. My question would be, me as a user of Blazor, that could be I have an application or I have a component library, it doesn't matter for my argumentation. When would I use this? Because that seems like internal bits I am not really interested in. If something is interactive or not, well, that is more interesting for me, as at least, from an author's point of view.
Yeah, if you're Blazor component library, then, well, I guess you might have code that decides whether or not you are, if you are, for example, if you are interactive and you are in WebAssembly, then that you can call your JavaScript files while you are in the main lifecycle loop. If you are on Blazor server, you have to wait till on after render to be sure that.
But those two information both reside on renderer info. And the only difference I can come up with is the point that, and I guess we can do this in a very, very quick application, that if you use pre-rendering, as you said, imagine you have a normal Blazor server application, almost. You have a normal server, Blazor server application, which is interactive with pre-rendering. Then obviously the renderer info will always give you, as a renderer mode, always server, and as interactive, always true. But it doesn't necessarily mean that in that render cycle your component is in, it is really interactive. It could be it's pre-rendering, and then you're looking for this one. Okay.
I guess this. So this is closed. Reconsider the platform concept of new render mode detection API. Does this give us a hint? So what does Dan say? Prior to .NET 8, we had the concept of hosting models, Blazor server, which took a fair amount of explaining to users to understand. Then in .NET 8, we introduced render modes, which many Blazor are still struggling to understand and rationalize. In .NET 9, as part of the new API for detecting the render mode, we introduced the new concept of a platform, which is separate from render mode. I think we should discuss some more what exactly we mean by a platform in Blazor if we really need this concept. So traditional platforms are used to refer to the underlying OS, but that obviously not what we mean by the new API, which has a potential to create confusion. Maybe we should pick a more Blazor-specific name. So,
we are the prime examples of exactly that.
So what came out of this? This was just a closed issue. Okay. Is there any references to this? The plan to rename platform to renderer info? Okay. Yeah.
They did.
Okay.
They did.
They did.
I mean, don't get me wrong, if this is an internal thing, they have to make somewhat public, but it doesn't seem like that. It seems like there was a concrete use case in mind. Oh, wait, can you go back? There was something. Maybe the epic behind their Blazor 9 tracking issue.
Changed.
No.
Yeah, that's close.
No, I thought the tracking issue maybe around that. There's a better story because. Yeah, I know, but sometimes they have that. But
let's see here with this. This is from July this year, and so yeah, people complaining. Well, okay. Actually, let's do learn. Renderer info. Learn.microsoft.com. Prefix with a side. Yes, so I guess this is just API documentation. Doesn't really tell us much. What about Assigned render mode, right? Oh, maybe something's covered in this page.
Render mode.
Can
you wait? Can you go on the top left? You have version ASP.NET 8.
Oh, yeah.
Probably right. They already have 10 preview.
Yeah. Okay, here we go. All right. So detect rendering location interactive and assign render mode at runtime. The component base render info and let me zoom in so everybody can follow along. Oh, where did it go? Here. And component base assign render mode. Properties permit the app to detect details about the location and activity and assign render mode of a component. So render info.names return the location where the component is executing. So static, server, WebAssembly, WebView. So the location, I guess, might be the keyword here.
That's what I mean with the static one.
Yeah.
So if you use a Blazor server, even if it's pre-rendering or whatnot, it will be always Blazor server.
Okay. Yeah. All right. So is interactive indicates the component supports interactivity at the time of rendering. So that would be true when rendering interactive, or false when pre-rendering or static SSR. Fair enough. Now we get to what's this then? Exposes the component's assigned render mode. Is interactive server is okay. So still, I'm not so why do I need both, right?
Exactly. There's, by the way, also a short message from Scott. They reconsider pre-rendering in .NET 10. Interesting. Do you have any bits what they might want to change? I would be very interested.
I think he's linking to basically the pre-rendering section.
Damn it! I cannot click on that link.
No. Well, let's go look at that afterwards. I just want to make sure I've read the rest, because I'm still not clear on why I would need to look at this one, right? Because this one tells me server, web view, assembly, static, whatever, right? If I'm interactive or not, basically is covered by the renderer info. So, and that is always guaranteed to be there. So what is assigned render mode? Right. Components use these properties to render content depending on their location and or interactivity status. The following examples demonstrate the typical use cases. So here, display content until a component is interactive. Sure. Yeah, so maybe you have sort of like the skeleton of the layout, right? You have like sort of animating, showing that there's things that are going to get filled into here, right? You see that in, I guess, Facebook or whatever. It's the content is coming, right? I can't remember the name for it, but basically,
skeleton.
The skeleton of the thing. You can use that too. If it's not interactive, you just
exactly. That's understand. I just don't understand the other property.
Yeah, disable if it's interactive. Okay, so disable the form during pre-rendering and enable the form when the component is interactive. Fair enough. Again, but that's all, I guess, here, right? It's, if it's, so again, only using rendering mode. Okay. Now it's getting good. Let's see. Render markup to support performing a regular HTML action if the component is statically rendered. So assigned render mode is null. The render mode is static server. The render mode is interactive server, WebAssembly, or auto. Yeah. Okay. In the preceding example, when the value of assigned render mode is null, the component adopts static SSR. Blazor event handling isn't functional in a browser with static SSR, so the component submits a form GET request with title filter. Query string set to the user's input value. The movie component can read the query string and process the value of title filter to render the component with a filtered result. Sure. Otherwise, the render mode is one of the interactive ones. The component is capable of using event handler delegate, and the value is bound to the input element to filter movies interactively over the background single R connection, or I guess if it's WebAssembly, it's doing something else. So if I understand this right, what we can do here is if we are in this mode, the form will be rendered out, and there will be an HTTP post coming towards us when the user hits the submit button. If we are interactive somehow, if we are, as soon as this is not null, then we are in a sort of interactive mode. Then the bind and click works, and then
the same example would also work with the renderer info.
I should think so. Like, could I just say? Could I just have
exactly
this?
Like for me, it's like just so confusing that they have both, and their documentation doesn't make me smarter. I have still to find out. I don't know.
Yeah, it's not clear why assigned render mode couldn't be replaced with. So if we copy this in somewhere, like it's not clear why this couldn't be changed to. I guess this, right? Oh, I need to have an exclamation mark here, but yeah, right.
Yeah, maybe it's something really for GitHub. Maybe I put it there or in discussion, because I'm more puzzled.
These seem to do the same thing. Well, I guess you can have. But no, I'm actually not sure. So if we scroll up again, sorry, let me just see if I can hammer home the point. So indicates if a component support interactivity at the time of rendering. So the value is true when rendering interactive, or false when pre-rendering or static is
exactly. I'm not sure which information the other property gives you on top. What is the benefit?
So I think that maybe it's if it's pre-rendering. So if this would be false also when it's pre-rendering, whereas this might not, I guess, be false if we're pre-rendering. So assigned render mode might not be null if it's pre-rendering, even though it's static. So hang on. I think that might be the only difference. So let's try it out. Let's do just create a new Visual Studio. Let's try it out. Create new project. Here we go. Blazor web app. No, I want you in my temp folder, please. Sure. And it's going to be .NET 9, short-term support. We want to have, let's just use Blazor server, global. And I think pre-rendering is enabled by default. No authentication. I think that's all we need. Okay. So go into my homepage here. Let's do p assigned render mode assigned render mode, and do renderer info dot is interactive. And finally, name. Why not? And I believe, go to app, so it's just this one. And if I go to the definition of this guy, interactive server, render mode, and it will have, I'm fairly certain that it will default to pre-render true. Yeah, so it'll have pre-rendering enabled. Well, okay, let's just try to run it and see if we become any wiser.
Ooh.
Building. And it popped over up on the other screen here.
I think to also test this, can you put a breakpoint somewhere when so the first render cycle on initialize, so we can see each,
Yeah, I think actually what we can do is let's see, pop it over here, because if when pre-rendering, right, I'm supposed to be able to see the raw data going over the network. So if I do this and just look at docs, we have this. So here it starts by saying
exactly it's false.
So no, yeah, but let me zoom. So here we can see. So it starts out.
Wait, let me just move our heads somewhere else. Our heads are totally in the way.
I can also.
No, we're on the left now.
Okay, yeah. So here we have assigned render mode during pre-rendering is interactive server render mode, but it's interactive false. So that is the key difference, right? This no, actually, it's not. This is also false during.
That's what I meant. Yes, the only difference is the render_info.name.
Yeah. So here we have true. This is the same. This is the same, independent of whether it's a pre-rendering or rendering. And then we have, but you can see the name here. Oh, I'm not bad at drawing. This changes, and this changes. But the assigned render mode, the one that we desire to get, right? That
stays the same because it's defined as an attribute during compile time.
Yeah. Yes. Okay. So it's a bit, I guess. Okay. So why would I need that? I would need that because if you go back to their example here, if assigned render mode is null, it's always going to be static. It's never going to be interactive at any point. So I would need to actually render something out that leverages the browser's ability to submit forms. Whereas if it may become interactive, well, it will become interactive also after pre-rendering.
You would produce waste
then
if you use the other approach.
Then I would just have this, right?
Yeah. But again, you can still do what you showed earlier. It still would work with the render_info.is interactive, but I give you that it makes probably no sense because you create two sets of markup where one will always be. Oh wait. It makes sense from a search engine optimization point of view because they only see the pre-rendered state, and never is wrong, but they probably only see the pre-rendered state. And then I give you that you cannot have the same with the is interactive flag.
No. So I think what we have here is the example is we would, if we know that we want to have interactive, like the render mode is interactive server, for example, we can have, go back to the example down here, right? We would have our on-click button, but we would just set it as disabled so that users don't start to hammer on it before the singular connection has been established. So if we go and pop this in here into the home. So
that's I understand. I just don't understand the other way around. I don't understand when would you use the assigned render mode. I'm obviously super straightforward with the render_info is interactive.
I think the answer is that this is for component developers, whereas this might be for application developers, right? So in my application, both maybe, but this is specifically designed for me as a component vendor to be able to detect if this component, is it going to, independent of pre-rendering or not, is it going to be running in server mode or in WebAssembly mode?
JavaScript would be also something, by the way, because in Blazor server you're only allowed in the on-after render cycle, but on WebAssembly you can feel free whatever you want to do.
Yeah, and so by the way, and that sort of removes my whole. So this render mode render_info.name, having that there at all feels so
awkward.
I see why they have it there, but I also think there's gonna be examples of components from component vendors out there that are going to use string comparison.
I have to put our heads again. So, or your head. I just wait here. Oh, I'm so bad. So assigned render mode is what the user chooses for the... Yes, so either globally or on a component level.
Yeah, exactly. So what I think is happening here is that we have, if I am creating a component library, right, I can support all the render modes I want, right? I can all four: static, no interactivity, and then I can support the server version, or the WebAssembly version, and the web view version, right? And I might have different codes for that, but the user of my component library might be using my component library in a WebAssembly or a server mode, right? So I get to choose whether to support one or more of the four different render modes, but my user picks the active mode at runtime, right, by setting at the root level. So let's go back to here, right? So if we go to the app.razor, right, there's a head outlet that has a render mode set, and all components underneath the render routes, which is all the layers and all of that, will get this. It will inherit that. And I will have components that are able to detect that and decide to do things. I can optimize, for example. And I think this is especially valuable if you really want that auto mode to really work well, right? Because then you can have your component do one thing if it's running WebAssembly, one thing is running on server, right? There might be small nuances whether or not you're running, if you're handling all the things over a Signal connection versus you're able to directly call JavaScript. Like in WebAssembly, you can call JavaScript in a blocking fashion. You don't have to use the async versions of invoke whatever void, invoke async. You can also just there's other options of invoking JavaScript more efficiently when you're in WebAssembly mode. And as you said, there's different times you can invoke it on. So I think it makes sense. Okay, so I think I have a good understanding now of why we have the different ones. So the next challenge is for us to surface some way for people to, hey, hang on, Scott, you want to jump in? I see you down there.
Oh.
Oh. Here we go.
Ah,
hey.
I don't want to break your guys' flow.
No, Scott, by all means, you have to break our flow when you jump in. Otherwise, we just look like assholes ignoring you sitting in the corner, not saying anything.
No worries.
No. So we were all, I guess, I don't know how long have you been hanging out? How much of the conversation?
Probably like 10 minutes or so.
Okay. Well, so yeah, I think we figured out why we have both assigned render mode and why we have the renderer info. And it took us a bit. And it's not actually, so if David Pine or who else, it's usually David Pine writing the documentation or somebody else, it's not super obvious in the document why you use one, not the other. And we got an idea and we had to figure it out. But I think to just recap, assigned render mode is the desired render mode that your component is being rendered under. So if you are Blazor server, but you have pre-rendering enabled, assigned render mode will say this is Blazor server interactive. But the renderer info that says is interactive, that might be false. Is interactive might be false if we are pre-rendering, even though so that's the distinction, right? So yeah.
It's very subtle.
Yeah, and it's well, we try to read the document, but it's not.
Guess we could send a PR. Fix the docs.
Oh, come on.
Who does that? Who helps open source?
I would rather nerd snipe David Pine and tell him to fix the documentation than do it myself. Oh yeah. No, actually, my only claim to fame here in the docs is writing. I believe it's here. See, I'm here, and it was very.
You wrote your name, but the rest is from Microsoft.
Well, no. I actually. So the story is, I wrote the draft for this article, and I even included my own nomenclature for component under test, and shout out to bUnit here, and then I sort of wrote this, but then somebody else, and I can't remember his real name, came in, one of the editors from Microsoft, and basically cut the length in half of the article and make it much more succinct. But for all intents and purposes, it was sort of my overall idea here. But yeah. Anyway, so
Very cool.
So yeah, okay. And yes, very self-serving because I was basically just writing it to get some links to point at bUnit.dev. But it worked out. So yeah, I guess so. All the tests we have pass, and so we have a component with section outlet and render mode speci. Is it
YNG?
Yeah. That's why I have spell check. Yeah. Specifying a child component. So if we go to this guy, we have a section that specifies the render mode, and then that's the outlet. So if we have a constant, then this component that prints signed render mode will get interactive WebAssembly passed from here. And it does. Then we have child with content, component with child content, and then has a render mode at this level. And then again, we print out the render mode here.
Oh, I'm pretty certain that the render mode should be on line 94. So the idea is that you have a grandparent-parent-child relationship, and I think. Oh no, I did this wrong. Well, damn it.
Okay, well let's see. Signed render mode is inherited all the way down the render hierarchy. Well, we can move it up.
Because the other thing we just tested, like it says above, or 2 tests above of that, so it doesn't make much sense. Yeah, but this makes more sense that we're not just checking one level, but all the way.
So now it's trying to help me format again. So yeah,
let's call it helping.
Yeah, and then I
have the senses like your 2-year-old want to help you with something. It's probably the same.
Yeah, no. If anybody from Visual Studio see a small clip of this, if when I format my document, don't try to mess up the formatting of inline render fragments. It's a pain. I think actually VS Code, probably Writer, just leaves them alone and just treats them at markup wherever I've put them. But yeah. Anyway, parent sets the render mode to children. Okay, so parent that sets.
Maybe I was not really awake when I wrote those tests.
No,
maybe I was. Yeah.
Component with child content. So this doesn't have a render mode. So there's nothing really to do with the parent, I guess. Or did you want to maybe do, I don't know.
No, I guess I just wanted to be honest.
Do you want like multiple
5 days
levels?
Ago. No, the multiple levels is below. The idea here is more that even though you just have a render fragment or child content, that it works still. But
yeah, so it's not set on the top. So this has basically no render mode, the top component, and then the child component have it specified directly. So child render mode specified on child. I think that's the name of the test. Parent and child render mode is not specified, so then it's just empty. Yes, and parent and child render mode is specified. Oh, so this is assembly, then this is... Okay, so we have WebAssembly here, and then we have server
even
mode.
Though in the reality that should never work.
Probably
I'm not really... Yeah, probably we shouldn't even test that. I mean, if it's not legal in a Blazor application, does it make sense?
I was wondering that too.
Yeah, well, let's try it. So
you get an exception, an invalidation exception.
So I guess can I do counter here? And
So I missed the beginning of this. Are we doing this because bUnit isn't setting that property currently?
Yeah, by default, the assigned render mode in bUnit, if you try to access that in a bUnit test, will just return null. So that's basically, so we're trying to add support for you to control that. And we have, so we have that we talked about last time, the set renderer info, which is the other leg of this. And you can set that on the renderer, and then if you render component, whatever you pass in, you have full control. So you can write test against components, and you can, pick your poison. And then there's the renderer info component. It should throw so basically we also have it throws an exception if we if we have a component that tries to access it, but we haven't set it, so that users will be told what to do if that happens. And component with server render mode. So this is assigned, again, this is assigned render mode. So that is, again, chosen if we go to we have to click F12. Oh, I guess I can't go to this one just by clicking on it. Let's go to it like this then. And so again, Visual Studio, no need to show me the 3 generated files here. Just show me that one. I'm in complaint mode today.
I have to move our hats. That doesn't work. I have to fix that. So, look at
here
this.
We go.
Bloop,
I think you're going to change the count. I think you're going to change the count there. So here we have child content, yada yada, and then we have assigned render mode. And I don't even think you need to do get type. Just do assigned render mode. But yeah, so this will. Okay, yeah. So this was the example where you just directly in your component say, I want this render mode for this component. Whereas the other examples we have in our tests are...
We set it explicitly.
Yeah, we set it explicitly. Where did our test go? So for example, here you say, well, you assign it not in the component, but the user of the component. So if you're a component vendor, you can allow the user to say, well, I support all the render modes, right? So, but then the user gets to pick the render mode when they use your component by including it in, right? And then you can make decisions based on that. So I wonder, I guess what we have here, right? For testing purposes, this is, what am I? So for the static, for the basically whatever the renderer, and we have the bUnit renderer, but whatever the renderer is going to report when you go and access renderer info, we have to set that through some means like we do here, right? But for the assigned render mode, if users are in writing test in Razor files, they can, during that testing, they can switch this out. So if they want to test how their component behaves with interactive server, they can just do something like this or something like this, and then they get to test that, or they can change it out. If we have a test, let's see, well, let me just create another fact here. Public void test. Gonna give it a better name. Well, gonna give it something at least. So var cut equals render component. If we pass that in here. So this is the builder pattern, which with all the formatting issues sometimes can be nicer to work with. So we have the parameters we can pass in here. I wonder if, so we have all the add methods here. Should we have a set assigned render mode here where you can pass in something like this? Should we include that?
Probably, huh? Not everyone is using the Razor syntax where you can do this out of the box.
No, exactly, yeah.
Yeah, then we need this. Like we did with the two-way binding, for example, we also have a function for that. So yes, that makes sense.
Yeah. Now the question is, can we do this? So I guess what I'm
that is a
getting
different
at,
question. Wasn't that a lot of internal stuff we have to set?
Yeah. So let me go
last time
and
we
change
checked.
this to actually no. I want to see the generated markup. If we just go down here.
It just as an FYI, I have to drop off in a minute.
I know.
I guess you.
We can keep. Well, I can keep going a bit. Scott, you feel free to. I know it's early morning for you, so you might actually have to go and do real work for money at some point. so yeah, I will keep going a bit and see if we can at least nail down what we want to achieve, so that it's just a matter of implementing it afterwards. So I want to rebuild this, and I want to see.
And everyone,
I want to see.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And have a beautiful one, and good start into the weekend.
Yeah.
Bye bye.
Have a great weekend, Stephen. Cheers. Bye bye. So yeah, I want to see if basically what we're doing when we have that static. Let's see, where did you go? My render mode tests here. What we are essentially doing with this builder is that we are manually creating a render tree in code. Now, for something like set assigned render mode, or I don't know, with assigned render mode, I don't know. We need to be able to actually programmatically create the right render tree that Blazor is also creating when you are doing. Let me just close all other. When you're doing something like this, for example, like we wanna be able to do the same thing that Blazor is doing, and so we can emulate basically what's happening here. Otherwise, I don't see we have a hook. But let's see if we're able to. So if we go back here and find, no, I want to see actually the bin folder. So this is super nice in Writer. I've seen that on Steven's computer, is that you can actually, there's a analyzers, maybe it's actually showing up here now, where you can see the source generated files directly underneath here. But yeah, maybe it's under here. Nope.
Have you used Writer before?
I have a little bit, but I am an old horse. It's hard to learn new tricks for me. So I really wish I could just pick it up. There are certainly things that are easier to work with, but well, so if you go under 9.
It took me like 2 weeks before I got used to it. Now I can't go back. Although right now is the most annoying time because you have to use like a early access preview to get full .NET 9 support. So usually they're like a week to even upwards of a month lag after the .NET release. So now's the worst time to get into Writer, to be honest with you.
Which is fair. Oh, here we go. Under generated, then we have this. And what was the name? It was something outlet component. All right. So let's have a look at the generated component here. So build render tree, and I wanna. Oh, this is sort of hard to read. It's funny. It syntax highlights this bit, which is not really the interesting thing I want.
Right. No kidding.
So section outlet. So if we go back here and have a look at this, let me just put it below. Might be easier to follow. So basically, we have the section outlet that's set up here. Add component parameter 1. That is section ID, I guess. Oh yeah. Where do I see that?
88.
80. Yeah. Oh yeah, you're right. Here. Yeah. Again, not highlighted. And then we have, after that, we have the render mode. So we have hidden. Then we have where does that start? Oh, here we have the render mode assigned to a variable. And then, oh, here we have add component render mode. Okay, nice. So it might actually be that we're able to do this. I want to see if this is public, though. And it is. Okay, nice. So that should mean we are able to pass that in. Okay, so that's good. Let's just move that up here again. So if we go, let me take that away and go back here to component parameter builder. So this is the one that has all the add method. So what are we liking? Do we want to do something like with render mode or set render mode, or
is there any precedent that's been set?
No, not really.
Me saying set there was not intentional.
Pun intended. Let's see. Well, not really helping. But it might help with readability. Let's go see if the API references builder. Here we go. So, okay, that's not very scrollable either. It's basically add.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not really. So if I zoom out, I see, but I can't scroll the table of content here. We that's another thing on the to-do list, maybe to update the theme here. It's based on the, yeah. I think what we have is we have a bunch of add, because you're adding parameter values.
Yep.
Scroll through, add.
Not doing a lot of updating.
Add child content. We had add cascading value, add unmatched, and that is for like parameters you don't have specified explicitly. So like if you just have an ID attribute, or I don't know, disable.
I don't think I've ever used that.
Yeah, so I guess it's for the ones that are not explicitly defined. So if you have that capture all, you can pass something in here. And then we have bind, which allows us to basically simulate two-way binding. So I guess it's the same as doing these three: value changed, value expression, and you can just do bind, and then you pass in the value, and yeah, so it's a shorthand syntax. Yeah. Oh, and then there's triad. I can't even remember all of these myself. Oh, yeah, this is for unmatched, right? So try to add a parameter with a name. Yeah, so it might be, for example, if you have cascading parameters you're capturing, or yeah, all right. I remember that being added because there was some need for it, especially if you're doing component libraries. So we have add something, bind, which is have a special meaning, and then we have triad. And if we look in here, so I guess you can do this where you say, I'm gonna try to something with a component, but you could also be that you have a component with a child, and that can have something, and then you can say add, come on. Oh, it's because this doesn't exist, so it can't help me. So it would be add child content, for example. And then you would specify content, and then you would have your something like this, and that itself might allow you to specify render mode at that level. So here we would have, so if you set render mode on this level, and I think the reason why I also prefer using the Razor syntax, even though it's a bit finicky at times, is that this quickly becomes, so here doing this, we are essentially setting the render mode for the child content, and here this is applying to the root component, the parent component, because this is for the lambda inside of our child content. Yeah, I don't know. Do we like set? I don't think Or it could also be just assigned render mode.
Yeah. I feel like I don't know. I feel like with kind of implies there's going to be other stuff, or I always think of the builder pattern stuff. So if we don't have a lot of widths, a lot of other things to width, I don't know.
No, there's no other widths there. I could have, I guess I wasn't thinking, even though I call this a component parameter builder, or parameter connection builder, I didn't really think of the width, using width instead of add. Could easily use the width, I guess. So yeah. That
was just something popping in my head. I honestly don't feel super strongly, but naming is hard.
Well, the thing is, the name we choose, we have to live with that until at least a new breaking change. So that's why I'm but
I totally get it.
I don't. I think my instinct is not to use width, and so this is sort of a special directive. Like if it was just a whatever parameter you would pass in. Well, we use parameter for that, but here you would have some, I don't know, param, and you would pass in values to it, right? So this would translate into an add sum, an add call. So yeah, no, I think my instinct would be set for now. There's with, set, add, or just say assign render mode. But well, then it would be assigned, not assigned, right? So you are
Yep.
It's doing versus, well.
Or what about assigned render mode?
Oh, that's just gonna trigger me. But then again, you are the native English speaker, so
yeah.
Oh well, for my British friends, native American English speaker. So don't want to offend anybody.
We speak broken English over here. Yeah, no, I like set assign render mode. I think it's clear that you're setting that property. So
that that would be something like public. Let's just copy that here. And I guess it basically just takes what was it again? Here, I guess you can pass in both null or something specific. So it might be nullable. Now, I'm trying to remember how we actually would go about this. Oh, that would be. Oh, and this would be package diff net.
Yeah.
9 or greater. And if.
When are we gonna drop support for you want 9 instead of 8?
So.
Or is it an 8?
I think it's only 9 assigned render mode, or
okay. 400. You got net 8.
Oh, yeah, you're right. Yeah. So for well, that's a bit ahead in the future. So I decided I wanted to be very stable, like the .NET community in general. Well, Microsoft's library are in general. So if you have v1 installed of bUnit, you will be able to keep using that for for whatever you have, even if you're on the standard. So I'm not going to make a breaking change as long as you stay for on V1. And before we had to sort of start working on the render modes, and Stephen and I were trying to do some optimizations to the whole rendering pipeline in bUnit, and basically for V2. So for V2, I think it's going to be .NET 8 and onward. And there's also only going to be one NuGet library. There's no reason to keep the bUnit core and bUnit web and around. Probably also just going to pull in the web project, the web.query project, right? Because it was something, the whole abstraction between core and web especially was because I thought at some point back 5 years ago there might be something else showing up, like the mobile Blazor bindings.
Maui stuff,
yeah, which wouldn't be where you, well, the mobile Blazor bindings is different, I guess, is where you actually rendered out a SAML, right, instead of rendering out HTML that would have been shown in a web view. And so there, the bUnit.web would be then bUnit. I don't know, mobile Blazor binding or MBB or mobile. And then you wouldn't be asserting against HTML that you produced, you would be asserting against SAML and XML, but it never really turned into something. So it was very much a premature architectural decision trying to, and it's,
it made sense at the time though, because it seemed like they're going in that direction. But
it seemed like it. Well, ideally, what I should have done is I should have just created something, and if it turned out that we needed to have, another version of bUnit, I should probably just have waited to refactor to that point. But so it means that there's a whole bunch of extra abstractions. Like we have a whole bunch of interfaces in V1, like the I rendered component and I rendered component base and I rendered fragment and all of that, because you wanted to differentiate between the things that were web specific and the things that were just generic Blazor, right? So, and it works, but it's a bit tedious to deal with. So it's we've been cleaning up quite a bit of that for the last year. So it's very slow going when you have a couple of hours every Friday to work on it. But there is a promise of a V2 bUnit back out in the future. Maybe I don't know.
Hey, by .NET 98, we'll have it.
Exactly, yeah. Exactly. Until then, and honestly, if it ends up, if we don't really see the end of, light of the end of the tunnel, I think we might just call that whatever we're doing with new render modes and other things, we might just take what we have now and just create a version 2 where we drop support for all the unsupported versions of .NET, delete some of the things, make a smaller increment version in terms of ambitions, and then maybe version 4 or 5 will be something completely different. Well, not completely different. So the ideal is still to not change too much of the API that people are actually using, but maybe remove some of the things that nobody's using, like there's sort of a whole weird feature about snapshotting, or well, not snapshotting, but in that when you're rendering something out, you can go back and say, give me what the markup looked during the first render, and then you can sort of do things with comparing that. But I'm pretty sure nobody's using that. So we're going to pull that out and simplify the code a bit. So I guess, no, not T value, but just something like this. And that needs to be stored somewhere. So that we have parameters. That's an internal collection, but it's not really a parameter, so I can add that. But I guess I can. Okay. So here, so the builder works by basically collecting all the parameters, whatever you want, in that collection, and well, bind is special, so that's not a good example to look at. But if you looked at here, for example, we just call add parameter, and then that's stored in the collection. And then when we are done, the build will just return the parameter collection, and the parameter collection will have a toRender fragment that will basically generate a render fragment from all the things you've added correctly. So so for this to work, I guess that's both a remove. Oh, this is simply just the implementation of. Well, that makes sense. So add. I'm trying to figure out. This is probably something that should be attached to. Well, we have cascading value. What are we doing with child content? So here you can add a child content as a render fragment, or add a child content as HTML, or just a new builder. Add child content. So what are we doing here? Yeah, we are validating that it has a child content parameter and has generic, and it just gets turned into a render fragment. So I think this is an entirely new type, because it's a new thing I want to store in my collection that says that this component needs to have that set render mode thing called, but it has to be at the right level. Yeah. Does that make sense at all?
Yeah. Just trying to think of like I don't
know. Yeah. I have this component parameter type where I guess I'm trying to see if I can use this as it is. Well, I guess if I can, then I would have to use a special name that sort of makes it obvious that because it's obviously this could be the whatever I renderer info type. That's fine. It's cascading, I guess, but it doesn't matter. Because then I could just reuse the existing bits we have here.
Yep.
But this is also a public API of sorts, and it's public, and there are still people that will just new up. There's an overload in .NET bUnit 1 where you can just new up your component parameters yourself and just pass them in as a list of parameters just by saying new and then setting these things, and it'll still figure it out for you. There's even implicit operators from this, and I'm very much regretting even introducing this, because it's just like use the builder instead of this. This is loosely typed, like use the string name directly instead of just using the builder to pick the actual name of the parameter you want to set. So,
right. Yeah, this is very stringly typed, not strongly typed.
Exactly. Yeah. But that was the first version, and I've been so keen on not even breaking people that were using the beta version of bUnit that I didn't remove that functionality. So yeah, there we go. I think. What do I think? Well, okay. Let's jump out of here and go into here, the collection. So all of this is fine, but down here to render fragment. So what we're doing is we're saying we're getting the get cascading values. and that's just.
So far, I do have to leave here in like 5 minutes.
Yeah.
But keep going.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. By the way, is there anything you want to touch on before you run off?
No. I mean, we could talk about bUnit web query, but yeah. Next week I'm in Orlando giving a talk at Visual Studio Live. So we're giving a workshop and giving a talk. So yeah.
What are you talking about?
So the workshop is deploying a .NET 9 app to Azure using Bicep and GitHub Actions. So it's a very optimistic workshop for one day because basically I'm going to be teaching people. I mean, there's not too much .NET 9 stuff, but there's like teaching people Azure, teaching people Bicep, teaching people GitHub Actions, and kind of how to unify all of those. Plus some services like we're gonna wire up Key Vault and App Insights and some of that kind of stuff. So yeah, it's gonna be pretty optimistic for a one-day workshop, but we'll see.
Well, it just depends on how quickly you glance over each of the topics, but it's fun.
Yep, each one of those could be like a one-day workshop, but
yeah. How many participants are you expecting?
Last I heard there was like 38 or 36 signed up or something like that. So
that's nice. That's nice. Yeah, and it's a very buzzword compliant workshop. Like you have all the new hotness in there.
So, yeah, I threw .NET 9 in there, and I'm like, well, hopefully they don't throw a big wrinkle. Like, they kind of released Aspire. I mean, they told, but yeah, I didn't know if there's any like going to be like some big drop of .NET 9, but didn't see anything. So,
well, I think it's I have a .NET 8. Blazor server app that uses Aspire as well to just spin up some SQL Server databases. And yeah, I'm looking forward to upgrading. That's especially some of the new things where in Aspire where you can pin and say, don't turn this container off, right? Even though I stop my host, that's gonna save a lot of time. I actually did a workaround. I just created for .NET 8 Aspire, I just created a custom, what's it called, resource, Aspire resource that just says, hey, you're just a resource that are looking for this container to be running in a Docker. And if it's not running, try to start it. Otherwise, give up, right? So I will just manually start the database up when I start my Docker instance. So I didn't have to wait for it to spin up because it would take a bit. That improves the, what's it called? The developer inner loop quite a bit.
I'm interested to play with some of the extra stuff, like creating custom commands and stuff in Aspire. If you've seen that, where you can like basically like on the resources page, you can hit the like ellipses and kind of create your own custom commands. I don't know if that runs. I mean, I know the dashboard's Blazor server, and I know you've gotten hit up on about supporting some stuff that they're doing for testing that, but I don't know if those commands run in WebAssembly or server. I'm gonna assume server, but I guess I don't know.
So I think the commands they've been demoing has been things like, restart this Docker container or, I don't know. So I think it'll go back to, it'll be server and it'll run on your machine, right? So, like I think he did demoed something where he would open Notepad or something. I think so. It's just running. It's not definitely gonna be WebAssembly. It's gonna be out of the sandbox.
Yep, that's good.
Because otherwise,
that's what I figured. But
So, but that's very cool. Yeah. So I like that. I think David Fowler also said that they want to make it extensible and sort of build towards it having extensibility points. Like I think this is one of the first ones where they say, well, you can go and actually add your own whatever you need for your particular project in here. Yeah.
I don't exactly have a use case, but I could totally see having something. But
I think I have a use case for this particular app. It's a new app that we are building, but it's replacing an older app, and there's an existing database with a whole lot of things we need to still need to read from the old database in the new app, and then we have our own database for the new app. But the old database is sort of gonna go into read-only mode as soon as we can turn off the other one, and being able to, for example, say, well, if I start completely blank on a machine, you can spin up and you can say, well, let's actually take a backup of the database and just apply that. So it takes a few minutes to run because it's like a couple of gigs it has to import into the database. But if it's empty, if you're like starting from scratch, for example, for a new installation, then like things like that, I think might be useful. Or resetting the database, for example. I think that's one of the examples I've seen. So you can or seed some data into it, but I guess there might be other things as well. Resetting passwords. I don't know if you want to test something like that.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah, it is cool. It is cool though. Yeah, and then my talk next week is the background on background tasks in .NET 9. So.
Yeah, you have a DOM train course on that as well, right? Or was it GitHub Actions?
GitHub Actions. Yep. So a lot of some of the content for the workshop is the same, like because I'm explaining the same concepts and stuff like that. But definitely the DOM train course gets into way more detail because I only have 8 hours for the workshop. I still got to teach people Azure and Bicep and give them time to do it as well. So. Yeah, the fun part of that is I've given this workshop before, but the fun part is I want people to deploy to Azure, but Azure costs money, and I don't want them to have to spend. They're already spending money for the conference, and usually their company's paying for it, so I don't want them to have to like pay for it. So basically, I've got a Sandbox Azure account that they're going to work out of, and I'll just eat that cost temporarily. But Microsoft's kind of sponsoring some of that too. So
exactly. Yeah, I was about to say, I think as also an MVP, you can go and hit somebody up and say, hey, I'm doing this workshop and I'm teaching people Asia. Can you add some extra credits to the subscription I'm going to use for, and then everybody can get their own, I don't know, resource group or something on like all your participants, so they don't mess up each other's work. Yeah.
Yeah. The fun part is, everybody basically has their own resource group, and fun part is because they have their own like fork of the GitHub Actions repo. I have to like authenticate them. I don't know how much you've done like with federated credentials and Azure and stuff like that, saying like, hey, this repo can talk to this resource group, but basically I have to like collect their username so and their email, so then I can have like it's so much harder when you actually like deploy something. That's why a lot of workshops and stuff and courses don't actually have you deploy something, because creating a server usually costs money no matter what kind of server you're creating. So or it's like there's a lot of setup and blah blah, but
for the last couple of customers I've been with, we've used Azure DevOps, and there's a way for that to get a federated, like you can get a service principal in Entra ID for your DevOps account there, and then that will handle the service connection that so you can go in and assign permissions for it to deploy, so it's not dependent on the particular user that triggers the workflow or pipeline. But security is not straightforward, easy, definitely. But you probably also might want to reach out to GitHub and see if you can get some dedicated runners for your GitHub Actions for your customers, because if it might like if it takes a couple of minutes to run, if it's running on a slow public Ubuntu, instead of you can get your own
that's a good point.
Scott's Ubuntu, that's gonna run a bit faster. I don't know how much time you will save, but maybe if it takes like half the time for everybody, and you have 40 people that needs to do a deployment, and and everybody's basically getting to the to do the deployment almost at the same time. Well, I guess GitHub kind of handled that during the .NET 8.9 release. It was a bit slow at some point. I almost couldn't log in, but because I guess everybody at Dependabot was rerunning pipelines because of new packages being released. But that sounds awesome. Are you coming to Europe for conferences?
Nope.
Sometime soon?
I just have VS currently on the docket. I just have Visual Studio Live next week, and then Code Mash in January in Ohio. But I know Europe conferences right now, but I will be at Summit. So
me too. And I have NDC London at the end of January, and then I have Svetuk in Stockholm at the beginning of February. So I'm in the doghouse at home for having to leave twice in 2 weeks. That's not going to be popular. And then a month later going to Summit. We'll see. I'll have to bring home some stuff, some candy from Sweden and London.
There you go.
Anyway, Scott, I don't want to keep you if you had to run off and actually do some money-making work. So good having you. I guess we won't see you next Friday, but maybe the week after.
Yep. Yeah. Sounds good. All right.
Sounds good. Yeah.
See ya.
Cheers. Bye-bye. Which reminds me, actually, I am not going to be here next Friday either, because I am going to Denmark for the company Christmas party. So, yeah. Anyway, I think I have about half an hour left before I have to check out and actually go do family stuff. So let's jump back into some code and see what we can figure out. And let me put myself... Well, how about that? Let's try that. Well, maybe usually it's down here, right? All right. So we were looking at how we can augment the bUnit component parameters collection builder. It's a mouthful. It should almost be a Java project with that type name. Anywho, get cascading value. We would search for parameters, find the ones that are cascading, and we're getting the value type here. So this is just basically finding all. Oh, and this is a nested method. Yeah, so this is just finding all the cascading values. So let's go up and see here. So to render fragment, we get the cascading values out. If we have cascading values, we call add cascading values. Otherwise, we call add component. So let's go in and see here. This is just me refamiliarizing myself with this particular code. And here we have cascading values, so we get a render tree builder in. That is basically what we want to return out here. We want to return a render fragment, and the signature for a render fragment is this. This is a void method that takes a render tree builder in as input. So what we do is we take cascading values, we dequeue the first one, and we say add component, so that would be the cascading value. Then we say parameter, name. Oh, so that's the name for the parameter. Yeah, a cascading value, and if whether or not it's fixed or not. And if we have more cascading values back after we dequeued the first one, we call add attribute, and we pass in a cascading value because we want to basically create a tree of cascading values. And then we call ourselves again, recursively, add cascading value, this method. Once we don't have any more cascading values, we call add component and pass in that as a render fragment as the child content to the last cascading value. Okay, and for add component, we basically get the component ID, and we call add attribute. And for the add attribute, which is basically all the parameters we will be passing to the component plus any unassigned, we get in here, and oh, this is just to increment the line numbers. Let's see. So we sort through, we basically loop over all the parameters that are not cascading values because we already dealt with them. We group them by name. Why do we group them by name? So I have the name, and we get the parameter out, the name out, and then what do? We assign the value. Okay. So if the user have called, add parameter, but basically there's nothing that prevents from adding a new value to the same parameter every time. So this group object, we find, and this is going to the first matched element. So this will actually just find the first matched element that isn't null. If group length is 1, okay, well, if that's just 1, we just add that. Oh, that's easy. Okay, but if we have more than 1, if we have a render fragment, we add that as a render fragment. And what the hell am I doing here, man? And then we have component parameters do not allow a regular. Okay, sure. and then basically we have a nested builder where we loop over each of the values. Oh, for if it's a render fragment. So yeah. Oh, that makes sense. So sometimes you want to be able to support adding multiple render fragments that you can pass into something as a child content. And here, if it is, this is a very long time since I looked at this code, but I guess that's fine. So here we're going to add the attribute, and we're just going to add the first. Okay. So if it is a generic type and it's a render fragment of T, I see. So what we're doing here is we're basically passing in a render fragment of T. Now, then we need to call add attribute, pass the name, and then we wrap template. And where are you at? You are down here. So, okay, yeah, so this is just basically invoking the template, the render fragment template, passing in parameters to it. So now what we returned here would be the render fragment that returned from the render fragment template. That makes sense. Okay, and we're adding that as a render fragment. Yeah, okay, and if we've added, okay, so we actually don't allow things to be added more than once if they're not a render fragment type. And here we just say, hey, if you do that, I'm gonna blow up. Now, this would be call for add attribute would be something we would do for on a component. So I think whenever I have this open component, I would so I guess what I'm wondering, how do I deal with nested types? We have cascading values, we have get enumerator, wrap. So what was the example we had? That was not here, but what if we have something like this where you have a parent component and you set a render mode for that, and you have a child component that you set a different render mode for. I don't think it's probably not even allowed. Interactive web. Actually, I think before Steven jumped out, we were about to go and test this out over here. So let's see. So if I said, well, we can create a hierarchy, I guess. So would you want to do render mode interactive auto? I have actually never used this, so I'm not really sure what's going on here. Oh man, let me just double check if chat has any contributions. Now, let's go back here and see, do we have an example of auto render mode here that I can just copy paste from Microsoft? Blazor auto render mode. So jump in here, go to .NET 9, that's fine. Let's see, search for automatic rendering, and don't need all the highlighting. So automatic rendering mode determines how to render the component at runtime. A component is initially rendered with interactive server rendering, interactive SSR, using the Blazor server hosting model. The .NET runtime and app bundle is downloaded and client background is cached. The auto render mode never dynamically changes the render mode of a component already on the page. The auto render mode makes an initial decision about which type of interactivity to use, and then the component keeps the type of interactivity for as long as it is on the page. One factor, yeah, okay, so that makes sense. So if you are on a page and you are on interactive server, and it will stay interactive server even though it's finished downloading the WebAssembly bits, because it would lose state. So, but if you go away from that page and come back to the page and you have the WebAssembly bits ready, then it would go into interactive client. So I guess what we can do is, let's see, render mode propagation. That might be the thing I was looking for. The default render mode is static, interactive server, interactive WebAssembly, and interactive auto. Render modes can be used from a component, including using different render modes for sibling component. You cannot switch to a different interactive render mode in a child component. For example, a server component can't be a child. Okay, so that's basically not something we want to support. Parameters passed to an interactive component for a static parameter for a static parent must be JSON serializable. This means you can't pass render fragments or child's content from a static parent. Okay, so if we go back here, there's actually a render mode test. We probably, let's see, did we have an example of where we actually did that? Well, this wouldn't really work well. So let's start by just doing this. But I think there was one example here where we had different render modes. Or where I'm mistaken. Well, I guess so. But I think what I want to have is I want to have a test that basically throws an exception, because we might as well advise users that they're trying to do something that is not right. So for this, we want to have something like this, where we say, if you do, I guess, this and say interactive WebAssembly, oh yeah, we just put it into an action. If you do something like this, where you're changing render modes, let's go to different render modes in between child and parent rows. Assigned render mode. All right, so we basically do this. We want that to throw some exception. So that's one test we want to have. Probably something like mismatched. Well, I guess Blazor itself might actually throw if we do this. Let's just try to render and see what happens. Yeah. So did I actually add this method? I did, just doesn't do anything. So we can just do return this, so it's stopped for now. And do everything build. Building. Yep, it seems happy enough. It's just for fun, run the tests. So I'm not sure if this will actually, oh, it actually did break. No, this is, what test is this? That's another test. So this just passes, which we don't want it to. So I'm just going to put this in here now, so I remember to implement this later. act equals calling this method here, and it should just throw some exception. Oh. My headset just ran out of power. Switching to headphones. There we go. Okay. That's because yeah, I changed this version, and I changed this component. Come on, navigate to that component, please. So let me undo this change. Come on. There we go. Thank you. So yeah, now we should be back to having one as soon as the build is ready. Yeah, one test failing, that's fine. And here, component with child. Actually, I want to start by writing something like this. So if we call set assigned render mode, I essentially want it to output, well, the same as we have here. Assigned render mode, interactive server, and let's call that 010, and we can move that down after here. On set assigned render mode on root component. And I guess I think that's, yeah, this one would also break. This shouldn't be allowed because I guess, but once we implement the other thing, this will start failing, and that's fine. Let's see. So but what we could do is, which should also work no problem, would be this, where you have on siblings. So if we can change this and we set interactive server on, well, we don't need that nesting, but we do need two different children. So we have one child and then we have another child. And that should be legal according to the documentation. So interactive package WebAssembly, and then our assertion will be text. Now, I suspect this might actually just work, but we can try it out. Oh, besides duplicated names. Nope. Oh, I have 2 test 10s. I guess this would be 12. And well, let's just delete that for now. Okay, two test failing. That is expected. So we are expecting this to throw, which is expected. At set assign mode is also expected to fail. I actually think I might not be running all the tests. This is .NET 9 render mode test. Yeah, I guess different. Yeah, okay. Well, at least we've seen the test fail now, so that's good. We see it fail for the right reason too, which is even better. So building here. Oh, still failing. Wait, we expect to have WebAssembly server, but what we actually got was interactive server. Yeah, interactive WebAssembly. Wait, what? Didn't I just change the order there? Oh, it's because it called something differently. So it's called interactive server render mode, and then this is called, here we go. Okay. That should be right now. And the point is, we're expecting interactive server and interactive WebAssembly. And this name we have here is not the same. It's actually it's just a property on the render mode type, but then it returns a interactive server render mode, which is what messed me up. And now it's happy. Okay, so that works. And I guess we want to have the same ability for these. So here we're just assigning on the root level. If we set assigned on, basically I want the same test here. So that would be first, that would be my root component, and then I would have add child content, and I would pass in this guy, and then we would call set render mode on that, and we pass in interactive server as the first thing. Yep. Need another parentheses here. But we would also have another add child content, and there we would pass in interactive WebAssembly as a second one. So now I have 2 children as well. So this is similar to what we have up here, and we want the same results. And what are we complaining about here? 1 parentheses, 2, stop, 2, 3, 2. I think color coding is matching up correctly. Yeah, I think it's just Visual Studio that's confused. Let's try that again. Oh yeah. on child component. Child component. So, and then we also have this parent cascades to children. So if we change this, well, actually, let's just copy paste this and just have a single one. Just add it like so. So we have a single child component, that's fine. But what we want to do is call set render mode here, and we can pass in, well, let's just use web interactive web assembly now. So that cascades, so that is assigned to the parent, but we want it to cascade down, and that would be then interactive WebAssembly in this particular case. So I think, yeah, Visual Studio is not happy with me. Let me close the editor window here and move back here. Honestly, it's also a bit challenging because we have all these conditionals in here. So that's definitely not helping. So I am inclined to give it a pass. But yeah, the Razor editor, it's a very tough challenge to solve because you have HTML, CSS, XML, SVG, CSS, JavaScript, TypeScript, well, JavaScript at least, and then also C# code are all mixed together. And it's not even nicely intermingled. Oh, and you can also use, what's called compiler directives. So the editor has to do all that at the same time. And you can even have things where you have C# code, and then you have all of a sudden this, let's go back to markup mode, and then you're all of a sudden in markup mode. But then you also have directives, which has the add attribute, but it's still markup mode. So yeah, it's a whole thing. I understand why it's not easy, but I also just like to complain about things. So it's a hard problem, but yeah, probably not going to be easily solved. Let's see, we have a build failure. Oh yeah, I need to stop copy pasting too much. So that would be 12, I guess, and then 13. Here we go. So I think after seeing these tests fail, yep, we have a whole bunch of tests failing. That is a really good place for us to end for today. Interesting. When it's only me, I just go completely full screen. So yeah, I think we're going to end it here. Next week, there's not going to be anything. Well, at least not with me. Maybe Steven will do a standalone show. Hey, Steven, if you do, awesome. Scott will be somewhere else, and I will be in Denmark for the Christmas party at the company I work for. But the week after that, hopefully we will be back, and we should be able to finish this and push out the code changes so that users on .NET 9 will be able to start testing different assigned render modes and the renderer info in the bUnit components. So yeah, bUnit component test. Thanks for hanging out, folks. Thanks for coding with us, and hope you have a great weekend. See you next time. Bye-bye.